Good afternoon on this beautiful autumn day. And yes, as Anna mentioned, I'm representing panGenerator or panGenerator New Media Art Collective. And we've been commissioned in late 2017 to create a piece that would talk about the Polish Radio Experimental Studio and specifically about the composition of Bogusław Schaffer called Symphonia Muzyka Elektroniczna or Symphony Electronic Music. So the idea was to somehow capture the spirit of experimental studio, but also to take some details from the composition itself and to include it in the installation. So we came up with an idea for an interactive installation that is somehow divided between two worlds, the digital and analog. Obviously, the analog domain was all there was to use for creating electronic music in 50s or 60s. So that was the main area in which the studio, or at least in the beginning, were operating. So we decided that we'll use purely analog generators to make sounds. But also, on the other hand, we wanted the installation to be approachable and easy to interact with for contemporary human beings. So we decided we'll use digital technology to create an interface, user interface to interact with the analog generators. So maybe we can go to first slide. Yeah. So here we have a comparison of the original Polish Radio Experimental Studio. This is a fragment of the Black Room in the studio that was designed by Oskar Hansen, and one of the things that captured our eye was the metal frames that they used to, lack of words. They decided that it would be easier to operate when all the equipment was held in a, modular frames that can be, the angle could be adjusted freely, so they are more easier to get. So the frame is also reflected in our design, but of course we have all the pieces together in two boxes. So here is what I said about a second ago. The lower part is the digital part, is the interaction panel that is actually a touch interface, which is very not unlike today's iPad and other stuff of applications that we use to make music. But at the top we have actual analog generators, and we decided to divide them in two parts. On the right side you can see the tape players, and you have also either tape loops and also the short pieces of tape that kind of reflect so-called one-shot samples, so you can play short sounds that have percussive character. And on the left side we decided to use something that is called optical generators, and these weren't actually used in Polish Radio Experimental Studio, but they were very popular in early 20th century. It was a very popular means of generating a sound. So we decided this still sits in the spirit of those times of pioneering times of electronic music. So we decided to include this type of generating sound, and the reason was also that we wanted the very process of creating the sound to be visible as well as audible. So with typical sound generators, the ones that they use in the studio, the sinusoid generators, usually you have one large knob to change the frequency of the sound, and you cannot really observe visually the act of creating the sound. Whereas with the optical generators, what you see is what you hear. The principle is that you have a light source on one side of the translucent disc, and you have a light sensor on the other side. And when you have opaque fragments like the black strips that you see, and they start to rotate, so you're repeatedly uncovering and covering the light source. So the light sensor creates alternating current, just like an electronic oscillator would. So by amplifying that alternating current, you actually can create a sound wave. And I think it worked out really well in terms that you can really see the sound being created in front of you when you interact with the machine. Maybe let's go to another slide. Yeah, this is another thing that we had to incorporate. I mean, not had to, but it was one of the objectives of the project. We wanted to use the actual score of Bogusław Schaffer's symphony, and a very distinctive character of the score was that he used rather graphic symbols than usual notes and stuffs, and there is a very precise description what each of the symbols is meaning and how it should be interpreted by the musician who is creating the piece, who is realizing it. So he chose few, I think about 25 of the symbols that seemed most distinctive and that were also most intuitive in terms of the connection between the shape and the sound, and we decided that instead of using 4 tracks as in the original score, we use only 3 tracks, and each of these tracks has its own set of symbols that can be used, and they control one or few of the generators. And the interaction is looks like this. You can choose the symbols from the menu and place them on one of the 3 tracks, and then you can move it vertically or horizontally. So in a similar fashion as in a typical music score, when you move up and down, you change the pitch of the sound. So the higher you get, the higher the sound will get. And in the case of this particular generators, actually you are controlling the speed of the wheels or of the tape spools. So the faster the speed, the higher the sound, the higher the pitch. And of course the vertical position has to do with the timing of the events, but also you can stretch them so you can make them longer or shorter. So we didn't take that much care about the volume or dynamics of the sound, but still you can choose the symbols. For example, when you use the white square or white rectangle, it's just beep, no attack, no release, you only get like a sound without any characteristics. But when you use a triangle that starts sharply and ends smoothly, you get the fade out, and when you use the opposite of it, you get fade in. So by choosing the right symbols, you can also influence the dynamics of the sound. Let's see what's on the next slide, I'm not sure. Okay, so here we have again, you can compare the original Telefunken tape machines with the ones that we created. And the thing that is on the top is also actually our invention, which is not very practical, but we again wanted to make a visual impression. Wanted to make the process visible, maybe I should put it in these words. So instead of moving the tape along the head, we have not moving tape, and we are moving the actual tape head, so you can really see when the tape moves and you can hear the sound at the same time. So that was our goal. And at the bottom you see the loops. Each of them holds 2 sounds, and you can choose which one is played. What's next? Next slide, please. I don't remember anymore. Okay, so this is the actual installation, and you probably noticed that it's on display next to the entrance, next to the Mała Czarna, and you can go and try it for yourself. I think this is an example of what could be called a post-digital approach, which is to take advantage of the digital tools that we have at hand and that allow us to do things that weren't possible few years ago or 20-something years ago, but at the same time take advantage also of the older technologies that have some advantages over the digital in turn. For example, the famous warmth of analog sound is what we are after in this installation. That's why we chose to use the analog generators after all, even though they are more prone to errors and breaks because there is a lot of mechanical parts, but still we get that unique sound that would be probably difficult to emulate in digital domain, and I think it's more straightforward and more true to the spirit of Polish Radio Experimental Studio. Yeah, so maybe that's it. I know we're out of time, so thank you very much. And please come and see the installation itself.